Can you please welcome to the Bab Bar stage, Caraline Brown?
Well, you've certainly got an exciting evening lined up for you, haven't you? And I hope I'm going to do Tim justice by telling you all about Mrs. Wilson's children. I've produced a book, as you could probably guess, which is all about my adventures at the Welly Club back in the early 80s. I don't know if anyone here is from Hull or knows of the Welly Club. No, it's one of the longest established venues, music venues in the UK. It's over 100 years old. It's still going now. It still regularly shows music and bands on a regular basis. But back in early 80s, I was a 22-year-old girl with a guitar and a passion for music. And one of the promoters said to me that they were tired of doing the gigs and would I take it over. And yes, I said, because I love organising things and getting things done. I love music, and it was a pleasure to do so. Little did I know the responsibilities that running a venue were going to deliver for someone who is so young. The book is called Mrs. Wilson's Children, after a compilation album I put together. It was the very first vinyl album of local Hull bands, and features the eponymous Mrs. Wilson, who was the owner of the venue, and who kindly took a gamble on us bunch of young punks and wanting to put the music on right there. And all she wanted was the bar profits, of course, but we just needed somewhere to play our guitars. Many bands came and played. You can see the famous people on the right, the Bauhaus and Magazine and Monochrome Set and many others, and a few of the local bands on the left who did go on to fame. In these days, people were still producing posters that were produced by Lecture Set or with typesetting, but we were a little bit post Jamie Reid, and we were free to just do whatever we wanted to do, really, with the program design. And you can see some of the posters here that we put together. The first band I put on were Magazine, supported in theory by Bauhaus, and you can see that the whole book is, I had to keep these meticulous notes. I was told, whatever you do, be nice to the man with the PA, and always write everything down. So I took everyone at their word, and every single gig I documented in terms of who came through the door, what was the rider, what was the cost. And you can see for Magazine, we had 377 people through the door at the princely sum of £2, which was a lot in those days. We had to pay the VAT, and I had to pay £19.89 on posters, and the humble DJ got a £5. That's what our attitude to DJs was in those days. But you can see we made £90.65, and this money went on to fund the rest of the gigs, the subsequent gigs that happened. The book is all about people's memories, and of course I knew nothing of this, but Pete Murphy turned up and said he wasn't playing this shithole, and turned around and told me that he had a cold and couldn't play. But of course everyone had heard this, and he just refused to go on stage. And of course that does colour one's views of pop stars in the future. And I've never bought anything from him since. But of course, The Fall were the very first band I ever met, and I interviewed Marquis Smith, the fascist, in a little pub down in a lane in Hull, and it was just amazing to actually meet a real live pop star and talk to him about what their music was like and what he was trying to do. And it started a 40-year love of The Fall, right up until the guy's death a couple of years back. You can see him here. He's there on the stage at the Welly Club. It's only a small stage, about 12 feet wide and about 3 feet high. This is one of the notes from my book, and you can see how much. What would happen was bookers would call you and say, "I've got this great band. They're going out for £200 next month," and I had to make a business decision about how many people I could get through the door, what I thought I could charge, and whether I could make a profit. And you can see you've got magazine. Revillos, Upstarts, the Subs, John Cooper Clarke, all the various prices that they wanted. UK Subs are always the greediest. We had them on a few times, but they always seem to want more money than everybody else. This is some more notes from my books. You can see they wanted me to take Toyah for the price of £750. It was way too much of way too big a gamble for me to do. But you can see Cockney Rejects at 200, The Fall for £200, and the mysterious Adam the Ants. I don't know how much they wanted. Sons of the Pope were one of the local bands. And it was they who coined the term Mrs. Wilson's Children. Mrs. Wilson was quite an iconic figure, and she had her own set of catchphrases, such as, "Get down off that table, you wouldn't do that in your own home," or "You over there, get off of that chair." And they put together this song, "We're All Mrs. Wilson's Children." And we all began to identify as this group of people called Mrs. Wilson's Children. There's Adam and the Ants again. I really regret this. I don't know why. It says cancel. And I don't know how much they wanted from me, but I do regret never putting on Adam and the Ants. Magazine, they wanted 70/30 of the door after VAT. Hull Daily Mail. Call Alan at Factory Records. I was too busy for Alan at Factory Records. Here's some more notes. John Reed, he was really famous, one of the most successful bookers at the time. We took Monochrome Set through him, and we also took Girls' School through John Reed. Wahi went on to great things. Chris Hitchens, another famous booker. We took Teardrop Extodes through him. And UK Subs, as I say, they were really, really expensive. And even though we got 298 people in through the door at £1.75, I know why didn't I charge £2? But we managed to make a loss of £53.36. Again, our DJs getting the princely sum of a fiver. And what would happen then is that loss would be carried through to the following month, and we'd just cross our fingers and hope that we'd make our money back the following week. Here's Charlie Harper on the stage at the Welly. Here he is again. Me and Charlie went back quite a long way. I first met him when I was 15 years old in Wimbledon. I'm not from Hull, I was originally from London. And I was his Saturday girl when he was a hairdresser. And he's just written a book, actually, which tells all the stories about his time as a hairdresser. But I used to get £1 a day for being a Saturday girl. And I later went on to live in a squat with him on Wimbledon Queen's Road. And he was famous for being the only person living in a squat who'd had the place carpeted. We all thought this is terribly, terribly cool. I then met him again when he came to Hull, and I used to tell everybody, I know Charlie Harper, and I just prayed to God that when he came to the club, he'd remember who I was, and that people wouldn't think I was bullshitting, that I really did know the great Charlie Harper. Here's me telling Charlie not to walk across Mrs. Wilson's floor. Because Mrs. Wilson, tell him, Caraline, tell him he can't walk across the floor just like that with those boots on. I'm sorry about this yellow line. I'm not sure what it's meant to be indicating. But again, here's another note from my book and some of the scrabblings and notes that we took. Because people would phone up and say, I've got this band, would you like to book them? And you'd sort of make notes as you went along. You could see the Au Pairs, who's going to support Teardrop Explodes, Waheat, moving them, who's going to support them. Killing Joke was probably my scariest gig ever. a few months before, there was the Welly Club. There was a downstairs where the venue was, which is about 500, 700 capacity. And upstairs, there was more of a clubby room, which took about 200 people. And we all went there on a Friday night. And there was a guy, Mark Apollo, and he was the DJ. And one day he got done for allowing somebody to smoke a joint on the premises. And he went to prison for 3 months for allowing somebody to smoke a joint at the Welly Club. So on this particular fateful day, I walk into the dressing room, see Killing Joke, and they're all sitting around, and there's all this smoke coming from somewhere. And there is the hugest hookah pipe I have ever seen in my life. It was literally up to here, and all these guys are all sitting around just on this pipe. And I'm only 22, remember, and I'm going, excuse me, fellas, I don't think you should be smoking that in there. And I just had to close the door and run away, because I'm seriously thinking to myself, if they get caught, I actually could go to prison, and it had been proven before. But, sorry, I wanted to tell you that we got 260 people in on the door, and we actually made a fantastic profit of £45.40. We had £4.45 on the beer, £4.95 on the food. And my job was to do everything. And everyone knows what a rider is, I presume. And they would, the record company would send you the rider. We said, we need 2 bottles of whiskey, 24 sandwiches, 14 packets of Maltesers. And it was my job to do that, as well as organise the DJ and organise everybody on the door. And of course, we never made any money for ourselves. We were all doing it just simply because we loved the music. Teardrop Explodes, I think, quite in the middle of it all. We made a terrible loss of £17.85. We had 164 people on the door, again, £1.25. But you were trying to price it so that as many of the young kids who wanted to come and see these bands had the opportunity to come and see them. And I think in retrospect, I was probably a bit of a soft touch, and I could probably have made far more money than we ever did. But the gig that never happened is quite a famous gig in Hull circles. U2, they were from Dublin. These are my notes that I took when the guys phoned up to say, would you take U2? And of course, they were on their Boy Tour, which was the first album. They're really, really starting to break through. And they were really keen to play as many gigs as they possibly can. So I did a deal, which was £75 against 60% after 150. And what this meant was that they'd get paid £75, whatever was bigger, 60% of the takings or £75 of the takings once we'd reached over 150. And they were happy to do this sort of deal at the time. There are 3 singles out. Tempo Tudor was going to support them. They might have some posters. And we went, yeah, all right, you too, bring them on. But then what happened on the day, or a couple of days before the day, they'd been playing in Glasgow. Oh, sorry, what's going on? Been playing in Glasgow, making their way down through England. And they'd got as far as Leeds. And they got the call that, things were really happening for this band. And could they go to London? And of course, the last thing they wanted to do was make a detour to boring old Hull and then go back down to London. So they dumped us. They just said, sorry, guys, we couldn't do it. And of course, I was too naive to even think in litigation terms in those days. And they sent us the Concert Angels instead, which was unfortunate because I also had them booked for a couple of weeks later. But Concert Angels were always popular. But you would be surprised the number of people who think they're actually there at the gig. Here's proof the pudding. I actually went as far as I had the posters actually printed, and they were up in the town when the gig was cancelled. But the worst bit about this sorry exercise was the U2 fans who, the U2gigs.com and U2songs.com, who said, U2's only performance in Hull was performed on the second floor while there was a darts match downstairs. Well, there was never darts played at the Welly Club, and they were certainly not booked to play on the second floor. They were booked to play on the ground floor, which was the larger capacity. But of course, it was a gig that never happened, even though some of my contemporaries do swear to God that they were actually there. But it wasn't all about the famous bands. It was a lot about us local people as well. And here's my band. We were called Cool to Snog. And John Peel said it was the best name for a band you'd ever heard of, which I think is fantastic. And of course, they featured on my Mrs. Wilson's Children compilation LP, of course. And one of the highlights of my life was John Peel playing my record on his show. And he played it 3 times. And when you're getting ready to go out one evening and then John Peel says, all the way from Hull, it's cool to snog, it really is just a fantastic feeling in your belly. The guy here right at the very end on the left, that's Stuart Matthewman. Stuart co-wrote all the songs with Sade, and the lucky bastard is living in a penthouse in New York somewhere and never needs to work again because he just sits there, counts his money all day as well. He was a sax player. I don't know if you recognise this guy. Roland Giff from the Fine Young Cannibals. Roland, the Fine Young Cannibals, yeah. Roland was one of our very early ska, in one of the very early ska bands. They were called the Acrylic Victims, later shortened to the Acrylics, and Roland played saxophone. Very popular. You can see we actually made a £20 profit on one occasion when they played. And here's Roland playing sax on the stage. My claim to fame is that I introduced Roland to the beat. And I always used to tell people this, but I always used to feel in my heart that maybe I was sort of bullshitting a bit, that maybe was that really true? But then when we launched the book up in Hull in Waterstones a couple of months ago, Roland came along and spoke at the event, and he actually said to everybody, if it hadn't been for Carrie, I'd never have met the beat, and I'd never formed the Fine Young Cannibals. So that was a really, really nice, gratifying moment. Best gig I ever put on was Girls' School, a heavy metal band. One of the reasons I picked them out was because I'd known them from the British Queen in Tooting, where Charlie's band, when they were UK subs, when they were a covers band, they used to do Rolling Stones and Who covers. And I knew them because they used to support Charlie's band. So when I was offered them for £200, I said, absolutely, yes. And of course, an all-female band, what's not to like? The tour was so successful. Excuse me. The tour was so successful, they ended up going out for £2,000 on the same tour, which was just amazing. So we did make a profit. Oh, I think that's gone. Oh, there we go. As you can see, we had a serious number in on the door. And they actually paid a decent rate as well. And we made £130.39 in profit. And the irony of this is that Thursday nights was punk rock night. And it was Monday nights that we put on the heavy metal bands. And the whole reason of me going into doing this was because I loved the punk stuff. But there weren't enough punks with money to actually support the gigs that we put on, and it was the heavy metal gigs that supported the punk rock gigs, because Hull at the time, sort of late 70s, early 80s, it was very heavy metal, and that's what kept us all going. The worst gig I ever put on was the Thompson Twins. We had the booker was very, very, very pushy and insisted that this band was going to go places. And I don't know if anyone remembers, but there used to be like 9, 10 people in the band, and then they were narrowed down to a 3-piece, which did indeed go on to be successful. But I was very scathing of them at the time. And I said, OK, well, I'll take you, but I'll only do it on a 60-40 deal on the door, and I put them upstairs on a Tuesday, which was always a quiet night anyway. So we had more people in the band than actually in the audience, and I actually made a profit of £6.80. So if anyone's read Catch 22, it's like the guy sells the eggs for four, buys the eggs for £6 and sells them for £4 and still make a profit. Here's us at our launch. There's Roland in the middle, which was just fantastic to have someone. He's so well respected in Hull, and he really does give back to the community and does show up to support. And here's us. Here's our Mrs. Wilson's children, and here's Mrs. Wilson. The reason the place got shut down in the end was for underage drinking. Of course, most of the punters in the time were 16 years old, and they'd come up to Mrs. Wilson and go, "Mrs. Wilson, it's my 18th birthday today." And she'd go, "Shut up, you little fucker, you've been coming since you were 16. I'm just going to read you a poem and then I'm done. If I can read it without my glasses. Thursday night and it's time for the Welly Club. That's where you and I all fell in love. Magazine Madness, Budgie, UK Subs, John Cooper Carp, The Specials, The Revillos, Echo and the Bunnymen, John Upway, The Revillos. Killing Joke, The Members, Teardrop Explodes, Monochrome Set, what happened there? Nobody knows. Psychedelic Furs, The Specials, Crass Sam's, Sham 69, Wonderful Anarchists, particularly fine. Not Sensibles from Burnley, they caused a riot. The Thompson twins, 9 of them, especially quiet. U2 they cancelled and didn't turn up. UK Subs again, you couldn't shut them up. I remember the night Ian Curtis died. News relayed by mouth and not on the wire. Everyone shock horror, girls crying in the loo. No Sky, no Facebook, what could we do? No one to tell us how to feel, we just felt. It smelt like teen spirit, but we didn't know what that meant. Our first touch of death, those we know and love really die. Chucked out at 2 a.m. and nowhere to fly. So we headed to the Bakers and Prinny Ave at 4 a.m. A hot ham bap tastes good about then. So now we're all grown up and enjoy our grown-up lives. Houses and mortgages, grafting to survive. Shared our music with our children and hope that some would hit a chord. If they didn't like the Smiths, then that would be absurd. What is it that makes the music so loud in some folks' heads? It resonates, it throbs and beats and never goes dead. It screams and it shouts and it never goes out. There is a light and it never goes out. For all of us here, you my friends who are here today, spare a thought for those who've left us and gone away. Music is life, is blood in our veins. It's what made us and will keep us sane again. Music is our parents and our lovers, our brothers and sisters too. It started for me at the Welly. I think it did for you too. Thank you.
Excellent. Caraline Brown, fantastic.